It's been a while since we've seen Dina.
Yeah.
Way too long.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
We'll give it like 5 minutes, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, we have 11 people on so far.
Okay. How many do we have signed on?
11 total.
Okay. Let's give it a minute.
Mm-hmm.
See, Marcus is here. Carlene, welcome.
Thank you.
Alex is on. Tamara's trying to log on, but she's having a little difficulty.
Okay.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me.
Alex is on. Excellent. Welcome.
Tamara, you're on? I think Tamara's on. This is good.
I am.
Hi,
I'm just trying
Henry.
to get on my computer. I got it on my phone.
Okay.
Hey guys.
Hi. Oh, hello, Henry.
Hey Sandy, how are you?
Oh, good. So happy you could join us. It's 33, I guess. We'll give it 2 to 3 more minutes and then we'll start. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Mhm, 14 people on. Okay, 15 people. That's good.
I'm texting reminders to see when everyone is getting on.
Okay. I'll start 1 more minute, I guess.
I think Sal and the Wheeland team, they said they would be on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
And Barry also.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and David joined us. Hi, David.
Hello, everyone.
Mhm. I think we're good. We're ready?
Yeah, we could start.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to our Future Forward and Cost-Effective Empowering New York Developers webinar. My name is Sandy Abbas from Sirhant, and this is Sarah Golan from Sirhant. And Sarah, if you want to say hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We're excited that you're joining us. This is a continuation of our sustainability event that we had in October. And the webinar, we hope that you gain valuable information and learn from our guest speakers. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. We have 4 special key speakers that will be sharing their knowledge tonight and experiences on creating cost-effective and forward-thinking solutions for sustainable development. So we're going to start off with some background on each key speaker. We're going to start off with Salim.
Hi, everyone. My name is Selim Vural. I'm an architect. I have a boutique firm, Studio Vural, in Dumbo. And for the last 15 years, with my team, we've been working on residential condo buildings, apartment renovations, a lot of townhouses, commercial and mixed-use buildings. And my background is I came to New York, 1993, went to Pratt Institute, and prior to that, I finished Istanbul's Fine Arts Academy and got my architecture degree from there. So happy to meet you.
Thank you. Then we have Andre.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andre Oldacre with AOR Development, based in the city. We are sustainable New York developers here. I got my start buying brownstones in Brooklyn in 06. Picked up a small portfolio of brownstones, and they rezoned one of my buildings and to 8 stories of R7A, and decided to take a formal training at Columbia and Cornell to learn all aspects of development. And then later on got into modular construction, sustainable development, and have been doing it since we started AOR development in 2019. And with my partner, Robert Allen, who has 25 years of construction experience, I handle more of the capital raising, sustainability, innovation, learning about the incentives, and a bunch of other things we'll get into later.
Thank you. And then we have Brian and Paul.
Hey guys, good to see you. My name is Brian Kelly. With me is my colleague Paul, and Paul is one of the top roofing salespeople for contractors in New York City. Part of my team in New York, which has 4 roofing contractor salespeople, 3 architectural reps, and 5 technical people. We're all about technical performance, sustainability in terms of the products that we sell and recommend. And we work with a lot of the architects and engineers in the city specifying projects and making sure that they have the right systems with the important things that they're looking for in terms of what's sustainable. Is it sustainable because it's a roof? Is it sustainable because it's a green roof? What are the products you're using to create it, and all these different things. We're very happy to be here with Sirhan and glad you're here as well.
Thank you. Sarah?
Okay, so when we speak about building a sustainable future, we often, some people are confused. What exactly does that mean? Some may not know. What is it to build a green building? So the definition what I would say as a realtor, what I explain to clients is when we talk about sustainability in real estate development, it really encompasses all eco-friendly materials that reduces the carbon footprint and helps us to create buildings for the future. So materials designed for greener living spaces as we continue to see changes in New York City. And I think this is something great to help us with climate change, it's also very important for builders to explore sustainable building materials when they're thinking and planning projects with their architect and design team. I also feel that by incorporating eco-friendly materials into buildings, we create a greener future and have a lower minimal impact on the environment, which benefits the planet. And it also offers incentives. And sometimes the upfront costs, in the long run, it kind of makes it more cost efficient, and it lowers the energy bill for clients that are buying in these buildings, these types of buildings. So we're going to go into the questions for our guest speakers, and we're starting with Salim, and we'd like to hear his thoughts on how can developers benefit from your expertise in green roofs, facades, and passive homes.
Yes, thank you for that, and thanks for putting this together. Well, there are a lot of benefits, and it's not only because it's my buildings, and yes, we have great architectural services. We're very creative and technically proficient, but I think I should maybe approach that question from how can developers really benefit from sustainable practices, in addition to the good that they would be doing to the planet. Well, now sustainability has become a core issue, and it has become the mainstream number one. So they sure will have more buyers and more interest for their buildings and spaces, whether they're renting or selling. They would have more incentives. There are tons of government programs, which I'm going to cover in my presentation. And they will also, their products will be more marketable. And and yes, although the upfront cost, and we're talking about cost effective, and the way I approach that is with all the incentives and tax breaks and the marketability and the long-term savings, it actually is a good cost effective calculation. So on that note, I would like to start my short presentation, and if Rachel can go through that, and I'll get started with just a couple of core issues, look at it from a larger perspective of why we are here and why we're talking about this. I just want to make sure, yes, everyone, let's go to the first slide, please. We showed the end of the movie, Rachel, jeez.
Ooh.
Okay, don't look. We're going. Close your eyes, guys. Okay.
There we go.
There you go. Yes.
We got it. Excellent.
All right, full screen. So everyone can see this on their screens, I hope. Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
I guess you can make it a full screen too. But yes, so let's get started. So sustainability in real estate development,
Your call has been forwarded to
voicemail. So
not
real
available.
estate.
At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished
That's
recording,
not
you may
from
hang
me,
up.
right? It's not from me. I'm telling you.
Whose phone is that?
That's not my.
Someone is getting messages. Okay, Celine,
We're back.
let's continue.
We're back.
Okay, we're back.
We're back. Okay, up. Thank you. So, all right, let's get started from I want to go through just a broader perspective, a couple of current practices that are very relevant, the future potential, Local Law 97, and some of our projects that are relevant to this. So next, please. So we're dealing with real estate from whether you're a roofer like Kemper, whether you're an agent, contractor, developer, interior designer, architect, engineer, we deal with the product of real estate. And guess what? our product is responsible for 40% of global carbon emissions, and that's exactly why we're having storms and fires, right? So, and we have to reckon with this, and there are two aspects to it, that it's the production and the maintenance. So if you look at the embodied carbon, it is the production and the production of the materials, the construction of with those materials, and the operational carbon. Every building, ORCID, every building management, every building in Manhattan in the world is actually emitting carbon, right? So it's the long-term issue. So next. What are the current practices that are happening in New York, in the vicinity? A lot of things happened in Europe too, but now we're reckoning with that in our cities. Geothermal systems, are even being used in New York State right now, and the cost of this is going down. Geothermal is basically using the energy, exchanging the energy of the earth, which is a stable 50 degrees. When it's minus degrees out there, you have a 50 degree. So that's a lot of energy to use. And when it's 110 degrees out there, you still have that 50 degrees. So once you harvest that, your building will save a lot of carbon. Next. Urban green roofs. You see more and more, starting with the, even Barclay Center has a green roof, although it's only sedum, then it is a green roof. So the image on the left it's showing you what's cool and what's hot. And obviously green is cool. And additionally to being that, it saves with water retention, stormwater retention, and creating natural super insulation. Next, please. Net zero buildings is basically the building that generates enough energy as it spends. It's equal. What it generates is what it consumes. And now we will be seeing this more in urban and suburban areas, and it will soon become very relevant in developments in New York. Next. Passive house, amazing invention, thanks to the German engineering that was in 1990, invented by German engineers. It is an exchange system. How is it possible? Super duper insulation in the walls and super insulation in the windows that creates basically a insulated thermos of a building with windows, and just the heat exchange of the warm air going out or the cool air going out, heating the other temperature air coming in. And with a geothermal system or solar panels, this cuts down the energy consumption to incredibly. We'll see it in the next slide. This is one of the systems that we use in suburban areas in stick and frame buildings. You see that wall is a 22-inch wall, and once you have the temperature in there, it's not going anywhere. Next. There are a lot of insulation systems that are being designed by passive houses and off-grid houses, some of which are, whether it's concrete foam forms, whether it is, you see at the bottom a thermal bridge eliminating wall, Euro panels, or other IFIS systems. Insulation has come a long way, and it's a big part of sustainability. Next. Now, this is actually an amazing slide because you see a leaky old house on the right. That's the energy consumption. A modern house in the middle and the passive house. And if you look at the 15 to 300, that's exactly how we can eliminate carbon with our buildings. And hopefully we will get there one building at a time. Next. So a lot of things are happening. This is also one of the applications we work on, townhouse solar systems, just being connected to the grid and having a solar system cuts down your energy consumption just by 50%. Next. Now, solar facades, these are not our buildings, but we are looking to, we have researched this and looking to use this in our systems. Now, solar facades are becoming an ingenious way of using vertical surfaces, especially in towers, as energy generating surfaces. Next. Recycled materials. As Sarah mentioned, there's incredible value in this because one of the most important things is that these are zero carbon generators. When you generate and insulate aluminum panel, it's an incredible toxic impact on the environment because a lot of gases come out. Hot rolled steel, steel beams, concrete, these are actually awful for the environment because of the production of it. All these materials that we're exploring now are zero carbon materials that are natural and can be recycled. You can take any of these materials here, break it down, and reuse it. Next. And sustainable materials in terms of renewable, right? And mass timber has become a big issue. And all of these natural elements you see here, from felt to cork to bamboo on the top left, to composite panels, and even seaweed, as you see on that roof, has become natural and renewable materials that paves the way for new ways of construction. Next. Mass timber, amazing, and it comes in many shape and form. It can be composed from basically very little pieces of wood into large structural members. Next. And one would think that it is counterintuitive to use wood for a sustainable building, but it's not, because the carbon footprint of this lamination is very low. Next. And now you can use mass timber as a sustainable material under very heavy loads and in amazing forms. Next. Now, so that is what's relevant and what's happening. And Local Law 97, this is a reality. I'm proud of my city, New York, for coming for this very rigorous program that is actually the first in the United States. And any building above 25,000 square feet will have to abide by it with huge penalties. And landlords this year are already recording their carbon emissions, and they will have to submit their recordings by May 15 of next year. Next. So no gas. Any building above 25,000 square feet that is being newly developed cannot have any gas. And there are a lot of energy efficient HVAC systems that will replace the heating. Next. So this is, as we later share this with you, there are a lot of incentives if you're a developer, from accelerators to the CERTA programs, which I'm sure also Andre will mention. There are a lot of incentives in the field. Next. So now all of this knowledge, some of which we have explored in our projects, and more of which we want to explore, is in our work. This is a boutique development we just finished. Well, we finished last year on 497 3rd Street in Park Slope, and the super installation and at all levels, the foundation, the roof, the sidewalls, makes this an extremely efficient building. Next. And we did not compromise from aesthetics and sustainable materials. Next. You see double height. This used to be a brownstone, and we got a condo building out of it, and it's sold at top above $1,500 a square foot at top levels. Next. And we wanted to do a green facade. The budget did not allow for it, but hopefully next project. Next. This is a Couple Hill townhouse we finished also recently. Amazing sustainable wood surfaces, and again, our knowledge of high insulation with the solar panels on top make this a great project. Next. Looking at the entry next. Again, Japanese-inspired dining and the staircase going up next. And this is the bathroom, master bathroom next. So now I want to show my last two projects, which are under development in Hudson Valley. As we discussed with Sarah and Sandy before, this is, my main business is in New York City, but I'm a big believer, especially after post-COVID, in the Hudson Valley because we live in a remote working society now, and these areas are affluent and developing. This is a spec house we're developing. The land has just been purchased, and we are filing with the municipality soon. Next. This is the entry rendering with the super insulated walls and triple windows. Next. This is the interior space of a larger version. It's not as small as the first one. 25-foot ceilings, again with a super insulated roof, and you get a lot of light with the efficiency, the energy efficiency with it. Next. And this is a client who saw our house and who was interested in more eccentric designs asked for this. So this is the hybrid house. I call it the XTR as extreme, but for a private client, we're looking for land for this design. Next. And with that, next. So thank you. I am a sustainable architect and looking forward to do this more. Since you attended this lecture, you care. I'm glad to answer more questions further down the line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Salim. That was an amazing presentation, and we learned a lot. And I'm very interested in seeing the upstate projects once you get those started. I'm very passionate about the Catskills, and I love what's going on up there. There's a lot of development happening for the future up there. And you mentioned remote work, like it really is like to be out of the city or only come in a few days a week, but then you go back up to open spaces, trees, a lot of fresh air. It's a good way to live. So we're going to go into our questions with Andre, who's next. And I'm going to start. Andre has a few questions that he's going to be answering for us. And I'll start with the first one, which is basically, what are some of the most impactful ways developers can build sustainability into new construction projects?
Thanks, Sarah. So we deal with both new construction and retrofits. So on the retrofit side, Salim mentioned that our buildings nationwide are 40% of our carbon emissions are through releasing 40% of our carbon emissions worldwide. I mean, nationwide. But actually in New York City, because we're so dense, it's actually 68%. So Green NYC put out a stat that the worst 2% of buildings over 25,000 square feet are actually emitting almost half of that 68%, which is huge. So on our retrofit side of our business, we focus on that worst 2%. So we're looking at, we have a list compiled of 40,000 buildings over 25,000 square feet. And we're looking at because these buildings have to be benchmarked, we're looking at the buildings that are rated D or F, right? So those buildings, we know we can do our sustainability strategy, which includes doing geothermal, solar, battery storage, super insulating the building, water remediation techniques, and we can lower our operating costs by as much as 30 to 40%. That can be very costly. You say, how do you pay for this? Well, there's really three mechanisms to really pay for it. There's what's called an energy service agreement, which is a 5-year agreement with various financial institutions. There's a power purchase agreement, which is similar, but they own the equipment and then they sell it back to you for $1, usually after a 20-year or 25-year period. And then there's what's called PACE. So I'm on the board for New York State PACE, and PACE is a longer term, it stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy, and it's a longer term financing mechanism so you can amortize your payments over the long haul and get your benefit now. So PACE late rates are similar to traditional market rates. So right now they're in the 7.5 range. But the good thing about PACE is obviously it's a longer amortization, so it's a lower interest payment than the other two options. But with the PACE, it doesn't accelerate. So it sits as an assessment on your building. So it means it sits in front of the senior debt lender, which means a lot of the lenders do not necessarily like PACE, but it doesn't accelerate, meaning that if you were to default on the PACE loan, only the bad debt, say the 6 months that you hadn't paid, will come due. The interest, so your full payment doesn't balloon in a case of a default. So there's over 300 consenting banks with PACE now, including the biggest like Chase and Bank of America and KeyBank and all the rest of them. But they usually do it on a case-by-case basis because they are getting more and more comfortable with it. So it's a nationwide, it's run state by state, but New York City has elected to create their own program. I'm on the board for New York State. There are 39 states nationwide that have a PACE program. And eventually I assume it'll be closer to 50 soon enough. So with that, we have so many incentives from, as Salim also mentioned, from local, which is Con Edison and National Grid, the state, which is NYSERDA, and some of the other programs from New York Green Bank and others, and then from federal with the IRA bill, ITC tax credits, and even carbon tax credits. So there are ways and mechanisms to pay for and lower the cost of the upfront cost of these outgoing expenditures. So in New York City, people are running away from these old pre-war buildings because they are very leaky. So 48% of your heat is lost through your windows and your roofs, right? So that's why we have the roofing experts on here to tell you how to reduce that cost. And in some cases, with green roofs, you can reduce it as much as 90%. For the windows, you can go to obviously from single to double, and then obviously triple pane is the most efficient. Going from single to triple, I think you reduce your heat loss by about 40%. And then the cheaper way, if you don't want to go about replacing windows, you can just do some window films from 3M and some other manufacturers, and you can reduce it by maybe about half of that, by about 20%. So there are a lot of different ways to reduce your energy costs. So because we're in New York City, we are the gas bills in New York City are 11% over the national average, and electric bills are closer to, I think, in the 20s or even more. So you're getting more bang for your bucks by doing an efficient strategy and doing sustainable building here or retrofit.
So for question 2, for existing buildings, how can we make more sustainable building upgrades more financially feasible for property owners, and what incentives could help?
Okay, so Con Edison has a very strong program for geothermal. Salim mentioned it earlier. It's really where you're digging down as much as 500 feet into the ground and tapping into that stable 50-degree weather at all times, right? So in the summertime, it's 90 degrees. You're pulling from that 50 degrees. Your HVAC system is not working as hard to get back to the 70 to be cooled. So the geothermal system is saving you as much as 40 to 50% on your system, on your overall energy costs. So because we have gas boiler systems in New York, and the landlord is usually responsible for the hot water and heat. We are now seeing a lot of landlords being able to push, go to an all-electric building and push the heating onto individual tenants because they're giving them individual heat pump systems that now pushes that cost onto the tenant. Now they can subsidize it if they want it, if it's an affordable building or if it's a rent-regulated building, and they're not allowed to do that. They can subsidize it, but these electric heat pump systems are 4 to 5 times more efficient than a traditional gas boiler system. So even if they have to pay or part of the bill or all the bill, it's going to be a lot more efficient than running a gas boiler system. Then you have water remediation. So you can do stormwater, collect all your stormwater and use that gray water, it's called. And black water is from sewage, from poop, and then gray water is from your showers, your sinks. You can filter out that water and reuse it for irrigation, for toilet water, and for other uses, and laundry and other uses. And you can save up to 40–50% on your water bills by doing that. There's also smart valves and water flush reduction devices that can. They say 1 in 5 toilets in New York City has a leak, but you just don't know it. You may hear a little hiss. People don't even recognize it, but 1 in 5 toilets has a leak. These devices shut off the water and make sure it's not leaking. There's also a smart valve that most people don't realize that 20% of your water bill is from basically air that's pumped into your system. There's bubbles that pump through your system, and with these smart valve systems, they basically reduce all of that air, and you're actually getting charged for pure water instead of all of that air into the system. On obviously solar, there's a lot of incentives from Con Ed, but also NYSERDA and the IRA bill. So IRA bill will give you 30% discount, and there's added kickers in disadvantaged communities. You have to go by the census tract from New York State, New York NYSERDA's disadvantaged community map, but they'll give you an extra 10% for that, and there are other kickers as well. What else? There's you have obviously the heat pump systems that, like we said, is going over and pushing that cost onto the tenant. So all with that whole strategy combined, you're seeing a minimum of at least 30% reduction in your operating costs. And there's what's called a SREC and other credits that you can get from using solar and getting tax credits. So there's what's called ITC tax credits that you can get you up to 30% off. And then we can sell off your carbon credits. So your building, you can get an energy audit and get what's called a cross segregation study and get carbon credits. So if your building is supposed to emit, call it 10,000 metric ton, 10 metric tons a year, and you reduce it by 40%, you can get a carbon tax credit for your building as a way to help pay for the cost. So all in all, with the 3 levels of incentives, you're able to get potentially, depending if you're in a disadvantaged area or not, or if you're doing rentals or affordable, there's kickers for that as well. In many cases, you can pay for more than 50% of the CapEx by doing the sustainable strategy. And we're seeing in many cases a 10 to 12% increase in valuations of buildings. And then that also opens your building up to being more institutionally investable, which opens up the pool of people looking at your buildings. So a lot of folks are running away from buildings because of the 2019 rent regulation law, made it very strict to be able to take your buildings out of rent regulation into free market by doing what's called a J51 or other tax abatement, by improving your buildings, the quality of the apartments. So you're now not able to take your buildings out of rent stabilization. It's turned a lot of investors away. But with this, we've kind of replaced that strategy with our sustainability strategy and lowering the operating cost and buying right at a lower tax base, at a lower basis. So buildings that used to be at cap rates of 4.5% and 5%, or even in Manhattan as low as 3.5%, we're seeing 6.5 to even 8 and 8.5%, buying at a higher cap rate. And we're also buying buildings that have assumable debt for a number of years. Like right now, we're looking at a 100-unit portfolio in the Bronx that has assumable debt for another 8 years at a 4.6% interest rate. And then we're buying it at a 7.5 cap rate. So there's a 3-point spread there. So we're buying right, even though your NOI is going down every year because because of rent stabilization, your buildings are you're only allowed to, by law, increase it whatever they tell you. It's usually between 0 and 2%, but your costs are going up more than that because insurance has skyrocketed 15% over the past year. And then we talked about the gas and electric and even water. All of them are going up more than 2%. So you're actually losing every year on your NOI as you go into your a sustainable strategy.
Wow, that's really something to consider. As a landlord in Brooklyn, now, it's kind of like clicking for me. Like, how can I increase, income on a building? And it's nice to know, like, even when I'm looking for a project now, to look for assumable debt and, just do some fix up and rent it out and hopefully have a better return than buying something and gut renovating and then putting it back on the market. Okay, excellent. There's also, the last question for you would be, what sustainable materials or technologies are you most excited about for future buildings?
So on the new construction side, I was chair of the Offsite Construction Council with the National Institute of Building Sciences. So I'm very, very familiar and in depth with modular construction. I'm very, very big believer in modular construction and 2D panelization, building offsite. So you get many levels of efficiency by building offsite. We have looked at everything from concrete to mass timber, as Salim mentioned, a lot in his presentation, to light gauge steel. But even with light gauge steel, we're seeing a lot of manufacturers doing 90% recycled steel. So it is a sustainable, in some aspects, it is almost as sustainable as using wood. We're even looking at cross-laminated timber, which is mass timber, but cross-laminated bamboo grows a lot faster. So cross-laminated bamboo grows. There are some strains of bamboo that can grow 20 feet in a season, whereas wood or a tree takes 40, 50 years to replenish, right? So it is much more sustainable, and bamboo actually is actually stronger than wood, but it's not commercially viable yet because you have to grind it up into smaller pieces, and you can't use all of the bamboo bark. But in the future, in maybe 10 to 15 years, when some more research and R&D is done on it, I think you're going to see bamboo penetrate the market a lot more. But right now, what's commercially viable is CLT, which is cross-laminated timber, and glue lam, which is more for up and down. Cross-laminated is where they glue it cross-laminated, as I mentioned, and the glue lam is for holding up structures straight up and down vertically. So other materials, we look at hempcrete for insulation. We're looking at various battery storage. It's a race for battery storage, right? Not only for EVs, but for buildings. So for EVs, obviously, everybody knows that lithium ion is, the price has skyrocketed for batteries. They're using rare materials. Nickel, cobalt, and lithium are the three main characteristics for batteries. Not only battery storage for cars, but for buildings as well. There are about 10 different technologies that are on the verge of replacing lithium ion. Obviously, from a cost standpoint and from a sustainability standpoint, 70% of the world's supply of cobalt comes from the Congo, and they have slave trading and poor working conditions in that area. So we need to have more sustainable from. They have iron redux. I'm not to go into the technology, but there's salt. There's all different thermal technologies that we're studying and looking to see which ones are most commercially viable, but then also that we can implement into small buildings and test out So we're looking at various thermal products as well, because with the energy storage, you're able to, like I said, if you're in a rent stabilized building or affordable and you had to subsidize, you're able to do that. And you're able to also, if you're in a market rate building, you're able to net negative and net meter that building. So you actually have zero cost, and you actually get a check back from Con Edison at the end at every month. If you can pay for your common area and other areas of your building that you're actually paying for.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
This is quite a lot of information. How's everyone feeling? We've got one more panelist. We have Brian from Kemper. Brian, hello.
Hello.
So for the question for Brian is, what types of strategies can be employed to provide green or sustainable roof performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm Brian Kelly with Kemper System, and what we do is we make sustainable waterproofing membranes. We make air barrier systems and things that encapsulate the entire building envelope. So green roof is definitely a big part of what we do when it comes to sustainability, but there's different angles of that. Maybe I have a couple of slides, if you could put it up. Maybe we can make it quicker and give a little bit more information and go from there.
Sure.
If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. And after Brian speaks, we can go over your questions.
Okay, so you can skip the picture and go to the next one. Everybody can see me here. So when you talk about sustainability, everybody thinks of the following. They think of green roofing, blue roofing, and white roofing. Most of the stuff that we see from local law 94 came the requirement for reflective cool roofs, right? That had to have a minimum requirement of 78 for their solar reflective index. And where does that come from? These things come from nowhere, right? But really, if you follow along, that was really LEED version 3. The local law, the new one, that is calling for green roofs and it's calling for photovoltaics, but it still maintains that it wants to have an SRI on a flat roof of 82. Where does that come from? Well, that's LEED version 4. So if you follow along with LEED, you usually can stay up to date with where the codes in our city are going. And so, yes, a green roof is a sustainable roof type. A blue roof is a roof that's designed to hold stormwater and deal with the stormwater side of things, which is also somewhat done by a green roof. And then, of course, the cool roof is on the other side of things. If you want to change the slide, that'd be great. So green roofs, they do two things really well. They act as a cool roof. They benefit you in that respect. So your cooling energy costs can be lower based on the use of the green roof, but also they do manage to a certain extent stormwater, and they can be calculated into your stormwater management plan on a building, which is a nice feature, because we all know that we don't necessarily want to have a bunch of tanks in the basement of our buildings, because when I drive in the city every day, I pay $80-90 to park 3 different places, right? And so the economics of it, if you can use that area for somewhere else and maybe deal with your stormwater on the roof, might be better. So if you could change the slide. So blue roofs is another way of dealing with the stormwater side of things, but it doesn't really give you the advantage of the cool roof that a green roof does, unless you employ a cool roof with it. So a reflective membrane. So for example, we use liquid resin membranes that are the top of the top in terms of quality, that also combine high SRI finishes. So some of our liquid roofs could be 110 SRI, which is off the charts, and even a 3-year age on some of them is 98. So those are really good. So the blue roof, the idea of the blue roof is all the water is going to end up in the system, but the idea is it slows it down, where with the green roof, some of that water is going to be obviously used and returned to the atmosphere. You can go to the next slide. Cool roofs, as I mentioned before, we all know what those are, right? And it gives you an idea how they work. You can see that the typical black roof, based on its high emittance and low reflectance, gets really hot in the summer, where the metal roofs, if they have a little bit lower emittance, and a higher reflectance. They can hold a certain temperature. Then you put a cool roof in place, and that gives you kind of the best of both worlds in terms of the solar reflectance index. And so cool roofs is a good strategy, and they are mandated in the code. But the newest code really wants to push that green roof. It wants to push that or the photovoltaics. If you're using photovoltaics, you probably are going to have to use a cool roof as well. So go to the next one. And then to encompass the entire building envelope, the air barrier, right? We talk about how we're going to, save our heat and our temperature in the building. For air leakage is a big thing that has major consequences. And so an air barrier applied on the outside of the building before the facade goes in is an effective means to seal up a building really well. On retrofits, sometimes like things like brownstones, they'll even apply the air barrier to the inside because they don't have the ability to put it on the outside. But the idea of an air barrier, it can do some great things. If you turn the next slide, it'll show you kind of the consequences of air leakage and how that affects what you're doing in terms of cost, right? So you can look at your energy efficiency, your HVAC sizing, your durability, obviously moisture damage, wet insulation, and things like that, and then your indoor environment in terms of the thermal comfort, removing drafts and things like that from the area. So that's all different kinds of things. So when you ask me what's a green way to deal with roofing, those are all part of it. But then you get into so many other things, right? We get into product choices, which was mentioned earlier. And when we get into product choices, what are we using? Are we using something that's got a lot of VOC content? We've got products that are odorless, things that are bio-based. They're part of the USDA bio-preferred program in some cases. And those types of products can be even more green, right? And we just had a client reach out the other day and say that Con Edison was willing to give a certain amount of money if they use bio-preferred products, which was kind of interesting because we know that those are used by the federal government. They're used in military and things like that, but we were unaware that Con Edison was doing anything with those. So that was kind of interesting. And then regardless of what the type of system you put in, the next question is what is the sandwich, and how does that work? So your energy efficiency through insulation types. For example, we work with vacuum insulated panels that get an R30 and an inch on some of these buildings. So if someone's doing something where they want to do a passive home or something like that, net zero energy, you can really build super high R values like you see and was spoken about in projects that they've been doing for years in Europe. So those are definite ideas. In terms of the storm water, we mentioned the blue roofs, the green roofs. We also do the tanks, a lot of the tanks that might be in the basement or different areas of the building with these systems with low VOC materials, with bio-based materials. And certainly in LEED, there's a need for that as well. Low VOC is huge, right? Because that has to do with health, safety, and welfare, which is an important part of what we do and all this different stuff. So when it comes to the basis of green roofs, I mean, a green roof, everybody thinks it's a planted roof, but there are a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different combinations of things that can make one roof greener than the other. And the thing that we're not seeing yet, because the next LEED is about to be announced, and when we start to see that, I think we'll see changes to increase, obviously, R values and maybe SRIs and things like that. But we're also going to see maybe some things that have to do with the quality. We're holding this stormwater and releasing it slowly, and like others have said, they're reusing it and things like that. But what is the quality of the water after it's left the assembly? So what are the products that you're putting on top of your roof, and do they hold a bunch of plasticizers or oil-based petrochemicals and things like that affect the actual quality of the water that runs off? So when you go to use it in your toilet, or if you go to use it in your washing machine, things like that, what is it adding to all the other things you come in contact to? So that's really kind of the broad basis of green when it comes to the roofing industry. From a manufacturing perspective, we deal in the ISO 9001, which is all about the quality of everything, and then the 14001 is all about reducing the footprint of manufacturing, which is something that we really hardly have talked about, right? Because that's a big part of it as well. When it comes to some of the stuff that Salim was talking about, the cross-laminated timbers and building with that, these are all great ideas, and they work. We've worked on several projects with those, and everything has gone really well. I haven't had anything to say bad about any of that. So it seems to be, from a sustainability part, that's rapidly renewable resource, because that wood grows over a period of time. It's cut down, it's harvested, and then it's regrown. We use similar things when it comes to some of the oils that we use to make the resins. We'll use the castor plant, which is a rapidly renewable resource, and they'll be able to create that instead of using petrochemicals. So from that side, that's a fairly green avenue as well. And that's a little nutshell on that one. Anybody have anything else to throw in there?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to turn it over to Sandy.
Yeah. So
Are there
Sarah,
questions coming
Yeah.
in?
guys,
Yes.
if you have questions, just put them in the chat box or raise your hand. But Sarah, I have 2 quick questions for you. As a broker representing clients in the New York City market, what are your buyers' expectations when it comes to sustainability in new buildings and renovated townhomes?
If you asked me this question 10 years ago, when I was just starting out in sales in Brooklyn, people were just happy to buy a townhouse or get into a new development project. These were not the conversations. It was more about, is it renovated? How much work goes into it? And more about the cost. I think as real estate has evolved and we're seeing newer buildings, and again, when you're doing tours with clients, the questions that pop up about what kind of windows are used, what kind of flooring, insulation. They talk now about energy costs, because again, it's very, very expensive to live in New York City, and buyers are looking for value. But more so than value, they're looking for long-term value. So if there is a building that's a passive house, airtight, where you're saving on energy, resale value, if they're thinking of moving out of New York City in 5 or 10 years, that building will still sell. Resale will be at a higher price per square foot than, let's say, a home from 30 years ago that have been renovated, because you have newer technology, newer building materials that are sustainable in that project. So I think it's super important to have these conversations with clients and educate them with their search as you're taking them out.
Thank you. And finally, can you share some upcoming projects or available new development sites that you're working on?
So there is one that's coming up in Astoria. We're still working it out with the seller, but that's a 50 by 100 lot. It's now a 2-story building with commercial space. So obviously you could do commercial on the ground floor, and then you can build condos on top of that. And I'll share information after this session. And we're also going to share information that our panelists have provided. Those slides, those will all be as a recap email to everyone. One of our projects that we're currently building, it's in Crown Heights on Pacific Street, right off of Grand Avenue, and that's a 10-unit condominium, and we're working with the designers. As a broker, I'm sharing all of this and asking them about the finishes and choosing. A great question that I asked them recently was, what kind of roofing material are you using? And I shared Kemper's information, so I hope they will be reaching out to you. And
Thank you.
Everything that Andre said about, converting buildings and getting those incentives, I'm looking into that, because we do have buildings that we own in Brooklyn. And again, these are all rental buildings, and we want to maximize them and make sure that they're all in compliance as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So 2 quick things to save the dates. We're going to have 2 in-person events coming. One is on Tuesday, March 19th. It's a Women's Day event. So you females are invited to come. It's going to be really fun. And then Thursday, April 25th, we're going to be doing part 2 sustainability in person at our office, with a continuance of the panel discussion and then business networking after. I just want to have the sponsors just have talk about themselves for 1 minute. Josh, do you want to start? If you could just unmute yourself.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So my name is Josh Casper. I'm the founder of Studio Casa. We are an art curation service based out of New York City. So we work with all types of partners, residential developers, commercial developers, architects, interior designers, and of course, real estate agents. Our niche in the industry is being able to really source anything custom. Our clients pick dimensions, mediums, colors, anything they want. And our price points start really low at $2,500. And I joke around and I tell people we go all the way up through infinity. So Josh Casper, Studio Casa. You could find me at studiocasa.art. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. David?
Hello, everyone. I'm David Llanos with Cardella. We do window cleaning. And I think for developers, one of the mistakes sometimes they make is they try to be cost effective when it comes to getting the cleaning done. And as a result, sometimes, very commonly, they can actually scratch the glass if they don't know what they're doing, which of course becomes not cost effective and not sustainable, because you either have to replace the glass completely, or you can actually hire us also, and we actually remove scratches from glass. So that's another service that we provide. So feel free to reach out to me if you want some more information.
Thank you.
David.
Marcella?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcella, and I do two things. I do title insurance nationally for residential and commercial refinances and purchases. And I also am the one of the new business development person for Ordinari. We are a sustainable Brazilian company that creates high quality closets, kitchens, anything millwork related. And we would love to talk to all of you to see if we can work together, if we can build up something together. And so I'm going to put my information on the chat. Thank you.
Your camera is off, Marcella. We can't see you. No? You see her?
I see her.
I guess it's on my end that for some reason, I'm not seeing Marcella.
Barry. Thank you, Marcella.
Barry.
Barry.
Hey, hi, everybody. So, wow, what a wealth of information. Thank you so much to the three speakers. I just really impressed with all of the knowledge that we received on this call today. Really amazing. So keeping relevant to renovation and construction, I'm a mortgage banker, and keeping relevant to this topic. So I work as a non-bank lender. I don't work for one of the big box banks. So we have so many different products and programs that the big banks don't offer. But again, keeping it relevant to this call, there's a couple of three things I wanted to just mention real quick. Number one, most people do not know this. It's called an EEM, an energy efficient mortgage. So we can provide financing and help people who are doing energy efficient improvements to their home, whether it's for a purchase or a refinance. I guarantee you nobody's doesn't even know of this product. And then I have renovation and construction loans. So the houses that we were looking at upstate New York, we can actually build a brand new house from land and provide the financing for that with as little as 3.5% down. You can literally build a brand new $1 million house with $35,000. Really amazing for people who are transitioning into that work-life balance and building homes upstate. And then, of course, that's a construction loan, which is building a brand new house. And then the other category is a renovation loan. It works the same way, but that's if there's already an existing home. So all the people buying fixer-uppers and watching HGTV, we can provide that financing and include money for energy efficient fix-ups. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Barry.
Henry?
Hi, everyone. My name is Henry, an interior designer representing home interior design. At home, we specialize in high-end residential projects in New York City. We offer services ranging from interior design drawings to furnishing and decor. So our one-stop service is the thing that our clients love the most. We curate customized space for them and satisfy clients' interior design needs. Feel free to reach out if you have any question. And thank you, Sarah and Sandy, for having us and hosting this great event.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. We're so happy you're here.
Alex.
Hey everyone, and thank you, Sarah and Sandy, for everything. And thank you to the speakers. That was a lot of informative information, and I have some formal background education in urban planning and real estate development. So I know how incredibly intense and difficult it is to configure a lot of these incentives and programs. So I really appreciate all this information. What I do here is I have an interior design, well, more of a cabinetry design studio in Manhattan. And we do high-end and some mid-range German kitchen cabinetry. We design in-house, New York. We have our own design team. We manufacture everything in Northwest Germany, in Lerne, ship directly from Hamburg to New York. And then we also do installations in-house. So we do closets, kitchens, and bathrooms as well, with our bread and butter being kitchens. We do a lot of multi-unit work in New York. We do a lot of residential high-end work in New York, and we work as well in adjacent states, even as far as Utah and Las Vegas recently. So I'll be happy to be here tonight, and thanks so much for a great event.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions or comments and just want to unmute themselves? No? Okay. All right. Well,
I just wanted to say, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It was really good information. Is it possible to get the recording or maybe the slides of some of this?
Absolutely. Rachel will be sending that out. Our technology genius, Rachel, will be putting it all together and sending a copy for everyone.
Yeah. And you'll have the key speakers' contact info, our contact info, and the sponsors' contact info. So reach out, connect, develop successful business relationships with each other. And we're going to hold these webinars every quarter. So we're looking forward to having you on the webinar again. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, last question, Sandy, can you talk about the women's event and then the April event a little bit? I'm just curious.
Sure. So in March is Women's Month, actually. So I'm actually hosting it with Tamara. She's on the webinar right now with us. And we're going to be, basically, it's Women's Empowerment Series. So we have different professionals from different industries talking about empowering women, like someone from the financial end, someone from the wellness end. So it's going to be around 50 to 70 women collaborating and, having a good time and business networking together. And then the one in April is going to be a sustainability part 2 panel session like we had in October. So we're going to have talking about panel sustainability, and then it's going to be a business networking event in one, and it's going to be held at our office at Sirhant. The one, yes. So.
Thank you.
Yes. I think we're good. Mm-hmm.
Enjoy your evening, and thank you for spending this hour with us. We're so happy you came, and we're looking forward to seeing you in person soon at our next event. So thank you, everyone. Good night.
Everyone.
Thank you all. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.